Okay.
All right, well, welcome everybody to our mid-year meeting for AME 50. It's good to see a lot of familiar names and faces here today since we last met in April, I believe. I can't believe it's already past halfway through July already, but that's how time flies for us. And now as we're starting to gear up for our next TRB annual meeting, it seems like we were just doing a debrief from TRB annual meeting. So that's how the cycle goes.
Amazing how time flies, but we never get older.
Exactly, yeah. So it's truly amazing, yeah. So for those of you who might be joining us at AME 50 for the first time, we do want to do introductions for the chairs for the committee. So my name is Todd Hansen. I'm a researcher with the Transmobility Program at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, located in Houston, Texas. And you just heard Judy Shanley. Do you want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Judy Shanley, and I work at the National Office of Easter Seals, which is based in Chicago, but I happen to live and work out of my home in Boston. I'm the Easter Seals director on several projects funded by the Federal Transit Administration, including the National Center for Mobility Management and several National Science Foundation projects. So excited to be here with all of you, and I appreciate you all participating.
Perfect. And Chungbo and Yohai, it looks like you're both here. If you can introduce yourself real quick.
Hi there, I'm Yochai Eisenberg. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Disability and Human Development at the University of Illinois in Chicago.
All right, thanks, Yohai. And he's going to be talking about our research problem statement efforts here in a little bit. So we'll hear more from Yohai. And then Chungbo.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Chungbo Ai. I'm assistant professor in civil engineering department at UMass Amherst, and I'll be the paper review coordinator this year as well.
Absolutely, thanks, Chungbo. And we're happy to have Chungbo back in that role after he did an excellent job this past year. So next, are Susan or Subhash, are you here? Our communications co-chairs.
Hi, it's Susan Clark. I'm here. I'm the communication co-chair, as you've just said, and I'm the manager of accessible transportation for the Canadian Transportation Agency.
Perfect, thanks, Susan. And it looks like our email was effective because we're got some good attendance so far at the meeting today. So glad the word got out to everybody. So we'll go ahead and talk about the agenda a little bit in terms of what we're going to discuss for the mid-year meeting. We're going to talk a little bit about just some of the standard items, and particularly we want to touch upon updates to information in the MyTRB dashboard up next. And I'll also talk about editorial manager updating information a little bit later on to see if anyone has any questions or difficulties about those tools and why they're being used for our committee and TRB purposes. Yohai is going to give an update on the research task force efforts. We'll then get into paper reviewers information, since we'll start getting papers to our committee here in August, so in a little bit over a month, a little bit less than a month probably. We'll talk about the TRR special issue publication upcoming. We'll hear a little bit more about some decisions behind that. I'll talk a little bit about what we're hoping to do with committee liaisons for the committee and see about interest in particular liaison roles given other members and friends here today involvement with other TRB committees. We'll talk about the CATE conference, which the conference put on by AME 10, the Equity and Transportation Committee, and some of our involvement with supporting that effort for their conference next year in 2024. We also want to talk more about Transed conference planning for when we want to do our next Transed conference aiming in 2025, and have some ideas and gather interest in those efforts for our next Transed conference. We'll see if we have TRB updates to share. If I'm checking to see if Bill is able to join us later on in the presentation. If not, we can share what Judy and I know. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the things in the between our spring meeting and this meeting that Judy and I and other co-chairs of the committee have done to help support to develop sessions, either for the annual meeting or webinar sessions for TRB programming, and particularly a couple exciting ones in the topic of accessibility and air travel. It's picking up from some of our conversations at the previous annual meeting and continuing the advancement of those discussions and research exchange. And then we'll have kind of open discussion towards the end as well. But obviously at any time, within these topics, we'll have discussion, availability to ask questions and so on with the leader of those topics. Just as a standard reminder, just make sure if you haven't already, it looks like most people have, you can sign in the chat box with your name and organization, just to make sure we have a record of your attendance along with this recording. We do ask, of course, as always, if you're not speaking during the meeting, make sure that you mute your microphone so that we don't get background noise of any kind. And we will be on the lookout both within the chat as well as with any of the raised hand features that are in the Zoom platform here. We'll be on the lookout to see who's asking questions and give people the floor to speak. We just ask that only one person speaks at a time. We'll get to everyone's question, of course, and we value your input and feedback at those appropriate times. So just be respectful of that, be open to different ideas and perspectives, of course, and then we will also try to help resolve, if we can, any technical issues that come up. You can chat us and we can try to do that. So Judy, anything I missed? Any questions from folks before we get started?
This is Judy. I think you hit it. I'll let you know when TRB comes in.
Okay, sounds good. And then, yeah, we can move things around to have them speak, of course, as needed. All right, so first, we wanted to just touch on the MyTRB dashboard. I think during our last spring meeting, we had a plug to make sure that you log into MyTRB and update your preferences for the profile. I think, though, I mean, if you got this message to attend this meeting through our email that our communications co-chairs sent out, then that would have happened because of your utilization of the MyTRB platform to indicate that if you're not already a member, if you're a friend of the committee, to become a friend of the committee, we have the image here on the screen from MyTRB. Under the My Activities tab, you click on the button that says Become a Friend of a Committee, and then you're able to select AME 50 from that. And so basically that helps us with communication through the new email tools that TRB has for committee chairs to be able to send out emails and information. That's how we have to do all of our correspondence now. So I'm presuming that everyone that is attending today was able to had AME 50 selected as one of their committees that they are following in MyTRB, and that we were able to reach you in that way through the newsletter. I'd be curious if anyone got the invitation separately, or if anyone has had questions about using the MyTRB dashboard and selecting AME 50 as a committee to follow. So.
Yeah, this is also a time, this is Judy, this is also a time where we could share any feedback that you all have about MyTRB, the new features. We should share that feedback with TRB. So if now or at any time you have any questions or have any suggestions regarding how to improve it, we can communicate that to our colleagues at TRB. Has anyone used it other than signing up and updating your profile? Have people found it easy, difficult?
Myself, I really like the directory feature in MyTRB.
Yeah, I'll tell you the feature that Todd and I and Susan like the most is the integrated email feature, because I think I told you last time when we wanted to communicate with you all, and there's over 600 of you, we had to type the email addresses or at least copy and paste the email addresses in an email. And it was so tedious, and we would get lots and lots of bounce backs, as you can imagine. So having an integrated feature like this is really important. But the one thing TRB advised us is they're going to be purging outdated member records. And so really make sure that your emails and contact information is current, because you will be purged from the system if the information is not correct or if there's no activity in a certain period of time. So be on the lookout for that.
Amy O'Hara says she approves going via MyTRB. Was so much easier. So that's good to hear. Another one, for those of you that aren't aware of it, and I can put it on the screen here. So, and I know I as a co-chair have different, some slightly different options, but in terms of tabs, one thing, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, is that you can navigate from here by clicking on the annual meeting tab and then going to annual meeting information. You can go to the calls for papers feature here, and this is where you can actually see not just our call for papers, but any committee's call for papers and different topics that you can sort and search for. So that's another one that's there and available. So one comment from David is that pet peeve of the TRB emailing system, could they add the name of the committee along with the committee code? We can provide that feedback. I think I've heard that in other places, or with regard to other things, is that if you don't know the committee code, and if you don't have it memorized by heart, like you're saying, David, then you have to look up what the committee code is, and you might not realize what that committee is about. So I can write that down as some feedback.
It's good feedback. Great. Well, again, if anytime you all have any questions or have any suggestions for TRB, just shoot Todd and I an email.
Okay, we'll move on and go to talking about the research task force. Yohai, you're back up.
Yay. All right. Research task force. And one thing I was just going to note that, well, I'll bring this up later, but on the MyTRB site, you can, I think, do your panel nominations if you want to be part of any of the new panels for TCRP or NCHRP.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So that's right. Yeah. That's in one of the tabs is CRP panels.
Yeah. Okay. Just to show you, yeah, what Yohai's saying, the CRP panels tab, you can here you can click on available projects and then manage if you're nominated to a panel. It's all done through here. So we do want to, we'll plug that at the end as well, but definitely for available projects that are looking for and need expertise in accessibility of transportation. We want to see if folks are interested and available to provide that representation of perspective for those projects. Sorry to interrupt you, Yohai.
No, that's great. Thanks. Definitely. Wonderful. So the research task force, right, is kind of the orchestrator of research needs for the committee. The way it works is the research coordinator, myself, seeks recommendations on topics to consider that are important for developing research statements about. We then identify team leaders and members who also think this is an important topic, right, and want to work on submitting a statement to one of the different cooperative research programs through TRB. And then I also coordinate the submission of those statements. We essentially develop these teams that we call mini teams. Not sure why they're mini. They're not necessarily just like 2 or 3 people. They're often seem to be more like 7 or 8, but mini team sounds, I don't know, maybe a little bit more exciting. So we have these different mini team roles that have worked out, like a mini team liaison who helps in coordinating the meetings and taking notes, a writing lead, and then having several contributors or editors for the team itself. Where does this happen? This all happens on AME 50 Research Google Drive folder that I set up. And there's a link to that there that I'll also put in the chat here. And then an explanation of the process itself through this planning page. If for anyone who'd like to get more information, try to understand more about how this whole process works, I worked on this planning page as well. And then the way to get involved is to go to the sign up sheet that's described in the planning page, and then or email me. There's my email as well, yeisen2@uic.edu. So what are the current topics that we're covering and looking at from these mini teams? We had one team early on this year jump into air travel accessibility and can share what they cooked up from that. We have a topic on temporary barriers that I'll tell you a little bit about. And then electrification barriers, service quality assessment, and then a 5th topic that happened a little bit organically that focused on travel survey and disability membership. And then I guess at this point, I wanted to just throw out a question about whether there's any new topics or teams that people might want to suggest that they think are important that we don't have listed here at the moment. Feel free to unmute or put in the chat there. Okay, well, we could keep an eye on that as we move forward. Some of the updates on what these teams have done is there were 3 submissions for TCRP statements just last month, at the end of last month, which the teams worked very hard to get in on time. One about performance metrics for measuring the impact of mobility interoperability. That was led by the Shared Use Mobility Center and Al Benedict. And then a quality assessment methodology for inclusive public transportation services. And then lastly, paving the way for inclusion, addressing gaps in measuring disability and transportation data systems. I haven't had a chance yet, but I will put all these are in the Google Drive folder, but I'm going to put them in the research needs statements database, which is the TRB's main database for all statements that get submitted and that people develop as need statements. So these will be going there as well if you want to know more about them. There was an ACRP statement that was submitted as well earlier this year called Physical Attitudinal Systems and Policy Barriers for wheelchair users that wheelchair users encounter at airports. That was really nice because we really worked collaboratively with the aviation committee to submit this statement. So we're hopeful about that and thought that was good collaboration. The other statements are in progress for NCHRP. One that is from the temporary barriers team is called Factors Affecting Implementation of Accessible Transportation, Accessible Temporary Pedestrian Routes in the Public Right-of-Way. And just to give you an idea of what this one is about, it's related to understanding the factors that contribute to temporary pedestrian routes that are inaccessible, unsafe, or extremely inconvenient or challenging for people with disabilities, and recommending policies, procedures, and design guidance to mitigate these factors based on literature review, stakeholder engagement process, and pilot testing, and looking for best practices for engaging people with disabilities and in the planning and design of temporary routes. And then the second one there is about barriers from electrification of automobiles and electric charging infrastructure. So those are the two topics with the focus for NCHRP, which I think is due in November. So again, if anyone wants to reach out to me about additional topics or teams that they'd like to set up, let me know. If you'd want, or if you want to become involved in one of these teams and statement development process, I think they're a great way to make sure that the research that you think is critical gets put out there and gets done.
Thanks. And Yohai, I just want to extend kudos and thanks to you for organizing this effort, and thanks to everyone who helped on the 4 problem statements submitted to the TCRP and HCRP programs so far this year, and working on these NCHRP statements as well. It's really I think it's the proactiveness this year in going after these problem statement efforts is really great to see from our committee friends and members with this. So just great job, and great job, Yohai, on getting everything going with us.
For sure. Yeah, thanks, Todd. And I really enjoyed it because I think it's a lot of the people who think these topics are important, helping to get involved with writing it. And so it's definitely been a big lift from all those individual team members and teams to work together collaboratively. So excited that that's working out. Thanks.
Yeah, the other thing, this is Judy, the other thing that your work has really done is facilitated our collaboration with other committees. So it's given us visibility across TRB that maybe we didn't have before. So it's part of our work plan to collaborate and to integrate these topics in other areas. And I think that's happening. So I think that's a measure of us really being committed to our work plans. So yay to all of you who are involved.
Yeah, so please do, if you're interested in these topics for the research statements in progress, or any other topics that either we didn't have on our list of team topics here on the previous slide, or something else that comes to mind, that particularly the idea with each of these CRP programs is to have a research problem statement that develops research in an area where there's not existing research attacking that topic adequately, and so that's really this is the opportunity to go through each of these respective programs to have a funded project available for that research to be done with the problem statement there. So that's really the importance there. And I'm seeing we have some good comments in the chat of potential topics to develop as well. So we'll make sure to get those down. Thank you for sharing those. So I'll go to Chungbo, if you want to talk a little bit about the paper review information.
Yeah, of course. I think it's fairly similar to what we had last year, and then I mean I think in my job it was really easy because it seems like everybody is submitting their reviews on time mostly, and then following the standards. So, but I mean, as Todd listed here, most important thing actually is to update the information from the editorial manager so that I can have the specialties and the field of interest to categorize those reviewers so that there are fewer bounce back from you guys or from our general reviewer body, like, oh, this is not of my point of interest or specialties. And then we didn't have a lot of bounce back last year, but hopefully we can continue with that. And then those information becomes very critical. Regarding the expectation of the reviewer, so like I said, everybody seems to be doing a fairly good job. But and also from my perspective, I don't usually reject any of the review, but if it's just a list, for example, one sentence review, yes or no, those probably won't be counted towards our final measurements. So just be careful on that. And then I will be following the general TRB reviews criteria to make sure that all the offer papers have a sufficient amount of reviewers for each paper. And then certainly deadlines are critical. And then, I mean, regarding the workload, I guess from the bigger body, including friends and also memberships, I plan to assign 1, 2, 3 papers similar to the load that we had last year. And then some of the reviewers happen to be more, I guess, leaning towards to review more, just to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share more. And also, I mean, I can be quite flexible. So if there's something that you cannot do during that period of time, certainly I hope everybody can agree to review 1 to 3 papers. But if there's some special occasion, like shows up, and then I can be flexible to find other reviewers. Shouldn't be a problem. Regarding the call for papers, as Todd listed there, we do have a call for papers, and I believe the submissions of our manuscript will have those indicators checked or unchecked. So those are actually a good indicator for us to, I mean, in general, manuscript submitted towards our call for paper, I think it would have a good interest fields to all of us. So again, it makes my job much easier. I guess that's pretty much all. And I mean, for the next slide, I'm sure Judy and Todd, you're going to talk more. The thing regarding the I guess for the next slide regarding the ChatGPT or large language models, those are TRR. You guys probably receive a lot of guidelines. The only thing that I want to point out, I know Judy and Todd would comment on that, but the only thing from the reviewing perspective is I want to everybody to pay more attention to the literature review parts. I mean, we notice quite a bit of our students using those ChatGPTs or large language models to do their literature review, to do their actually term projects, which is totally fine. Our schools are in the active debates about how to really leverage those fascinating tools. But the things that we notice is regarding, because I mean, there's a character for the current model that seems to be hallucinating really fantasizing some of the unrealistic papers, and then with some unreal authors, and it sounds like a very realistic. And then I want everybody to pay extra attention to those when you review, especially if the authors notice that they're using those models to do part of their paper, and then some of those, if there's any red flag you notice, that I would like everybody to pay attention to, especially the literature part, because those are fact-based, I guess, arguments. For some of the, let's say, using those models to publish your writings, those are totally fine with me, but those facts shouldn't be twisted by those AI models. So that's my comments.
Yeah, just to add on to what you were saying, and I want to go back to the and show some of the paper reviewer information resources, but on the subject of AI, I'm going to read out these guidelines that we've gotten from TRB so far. I think we'll probably get some more guidance from the reviewer side in terms of what to look for as you're reviewing a paper when we get into the next month. But in terms of the guidelines that TRB has sent out for authors on this, and we'll share this presentation after the fact, but these next two slides I want to, this is essentially verbatim from TRB with what they shared with committee chairs, that they're anticipating wide adoption of artificial intelligence AI tools in the next year and of course years to come, and want to make sure that the alignment, TRB is in alignment with industry protocols on transparency with authorship. So any authors considering using a large language model such as ChatGPT or generative AI to help prepare their manuscript or submission to TRB AM or TRR, the Transportation Research Record, must comply with this statement from the Committee on Publication Ethics. And that's authors who use AI tools in the writing of a manuscript, production of images or graphical elements of the paper, or in the collection and analysis of data must be transparent in disclosing the materials and methods or similar section of the paper, how the AI tool is used and which tool is used. And authors are fully responsible for the content of their manuscript, even those parts produced by an AI tool, and are thus liable for any breach of publication ethics. The other specific requirements, there are 5 that have been laid out for authors to clearly indicate the use of language models in the manuscript, including which model is used and for what purpose, and the methods in the methods and acknowledgement section as appropriate for this information. 2, to verify the accuracy, validity, and appropriateness of the content and any citations generated by language models and correcting the errors or inconsistencies. Number 3, provide a list of sources to use to generate content and citations, including those generated by language models. Also double checking to ensure that they are accurate and properly referenced. Number 4, be conscious of the potential for plagiarism where the large language model may have reproduced substantial text from other sources, and checking that the original sources, checking those sources to be sure you are not plagiarizing someone else's work. And then 5, acknowledge the limitations of language models in the manuscript, including potential for bias, errors, and gaps in knowledge. Also, along with that, Chungbo, you might have mentioned this, that AI bots like ChatGPT should not be listed as an author in the submission. So a lot there, of course. And, like I said, I think we anticipate hearing more from TRB about how to handle this. This is, a new world that we're in terms of this technology. I see the, in some ways, like the comment from Mary in the chat about a topic of research could be the potential of AI for meaningful engagement in transportation. Of course, it has implications for a lot of things, but, obviously for research papers, it's something that we want to have our guard up against and make sure that these tools are being used in the appropriate way with respect to quality and validity. Judy, did you have something?
That I believe that TRB is really wanting our feedback, and particularly for those of you using, this came out pretty quick after the whole national discussion, international discussion was taking place regarding AI. And so I think any feedback that we could provide, both using AI to develop papers or to as a reviewer, if you come across any topics, I'm sure that TRB would be interested in hearing that and amending this policy as appropriate.
Yeah, that's absolutely, I think that's a great point. Any thoughts or comments on AI with respect to papers on this policy or in general? You can use the chat or unmute, whatever your preference.
I think we're seeing similar kinds of policies come out from many professional associations. So it be interesting to see how this
Mhm.
is amended over time as we learn more about how
Mhm.
AI is used.
Okay. While people might be sharing comments, just to go back to what Chungbo was saying on paper reviewers. Certainly our goal and is Chungbo and I work on together on the paper review assignments is not to overload reviewers, and the more, as we always say, the more people we have that are available to review, the more we can spread the workload out amongst folks. And another thing, and folks are pretty good about this, but if you're assigned a paper that's you think is outside of your area of expertise, or if there's a conflict of interest, of course, let Chungbo know, and then he'll be able to reassign it, proactively. And the sooner you can do that, then the quicker we can get it reassigned to a person to have in time to review it, by the September 15th deadline. And for some reason, my computer is not letting me copy links very well, but I pasted a couple in there, and I just wanted to show on Editorial Manager, when we say to log in to Editorial Manager and update your areas of expertise. This is just on once you go to Editorial Manager and log in, if you click on in the upper right tab, it'll read your name, and then on that tab, where clicking on your name with the down arrow, if you click on this update my information hyperlink at the bottom of that little drop down window, this will take you to this page. I scroll down past my information, but this is where you can add areas of interest or expertise. I have a bunch listed, and they have this select personal classifications and then edit personal keywords. So in both of these, on personal keywords is where you can enter the specific committee number and name. And I think those are available to just select on the personal keywords. And then for personal classifications, there's a pop-up menu that you can select and move over, like all these are applicable to me, sort of thing. So this is where we mean in terms of updating this information. That helps TRB steer papers. These classifications helps TRB steer papers and assign them to our committee. And then if you're also share the same classifications and keywords, then that helps Chungbo assign papers to you. And so that's why it's pretty important to log in the Editorial Manager and do this. I pasted the link in the chat to Editorial Manager, but any questions on that? Okay. I see some more. Any questions back on the AI conversation? I see Mary has a comment on use of AI tools should be clearly and transparently described. This includes detailing what specific AI model was used, how it was trained, and what data it was trained on, and any modifications made to the model for a specific paper. Okay, so that's something that we can provide feedback for in terms of how the policy is stated. Okay. And we can, if you think of a question, we'll come back to it during the open conversation. But next I'll go to Judy.
Yeah, many of you have been involved in this effort. Shortly after TRB last year, our committee was asked to organize and write a special issue that was focused on disability. We identified, I believe, 9 prevalent topics across disability, accessibility, mobility, and we convened groups of authors for each of those respective chapters. I think we had over 35 authors contribute to that process. We went through internal reviews, we went through reviews, TRB convened people for review, and my understanding, and Todd correct me, is that the special edition should be coming out in August. That was what they were shooting for. So hopefully you'll be seeing that. We're really excited about it. Again, it gives us an opportunity to really be in the limelight of Transportation Research Board topics. So thank you to all of you who participated, and I hope it's only the beginning of future publications that we're asked to do. I'm going to turn it over to Mary, but I wanted to say thank you so much publicly. Mary served as our lead as the editorial manager of the TransEd conference proceedings, which is yeoman's job. So thank you, Mary. And I'll turn it over to you to explain the process and our learning. Mary?
Judy, yes, sorry.
Okay.
I have connection issues, so I don't have video. Sorry about that.
Okay.
It was a pleasure for me, and thank you very much for this opportunity. It was very exciting. I worked with Sandy Rosenblum for this issue as a guest editor for TRR, and as you can see in this slide, we recently accepted 3 papers, and those papers and all of the paper that were submitted offered valuable insights, and it was a great pleasure for us to review those and provide authors with some comments. And I believe that there is a big potential for us to improve the overall quality of our submission for the upcoming publication that we are planning for. We had more than 3 papers for sure. We had a very careful process of editing and reviewing, and based on the quality and then the requirements of TRR, we just were able to accept 3 papers for the TRR special issue for the TransEd conference. So considering that, and I assume that based on our previous conversation with TRB, they are considering that those 3 papers to be a part of another edition that they have, which it's not final yet, but they are in kind of negotiation to see which edition that they have may fit those 3 papers. So based on what I learned from all papers that were submitted and the process itself, I propose that we consider conducting some webinars or some workshops for our members, which kind of can provide a platform for us to kind of clarify about our expectation, and also give authors the kind of a necessary tool to produce the high quality work that kind of fits the TRR expectation. And for that, we actually started conversation with TRB to see if there is any possibility for having a webinar or something similar to that in regard to paper review process. And I think that those type of opportunities, if we can have as a committee, can help us to enrich, our conferences and also the upcoming publication. But at the same time, while scholarly papers are very important for us, I would also suggest that we kind of broaden our scope to include case study reports and technical papers from practitioners. Because I think that, and I believe that a large part of our committee members and friends are practitioners, and I believe that providing a platform for publication of case study reports and technical reports would be a very good fit for our upcoming conferences. And I think it would not only just provide practitioners with a platform to share their insight, but it also offer researchers a practical, perspective about the existing issue in regard to the subjects of our committee, which is the accessible mobility and transportation. And I'm very excited to collaborate with Judy and Todd and any other members to work on any potential webinar or workshop that we are going to have, and also for the upcoming events, if I can help in any way. And thank you very much again for trusting my judgment and connecting me with Sandy Rosenblum. It was a great experience for me myself. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mary. Certainly your leadership of that committee was important, and you offered some really great recommendations. I think, looking back at Trans Ed and the publication of the proceedings document, there was a lot of ambiguity around that, and we didn't give as best guidance as we could to potential authors. And so I think the learning from your experience and what had transpired in this last round will certainly help us for this publication as well as future publications. So folks, stay tuned. If you have any suggestions for any kinds of trainings and supports that we could provide to really enrich the quality of our publications coming out of a committee, we'd love to hear those recommendations. So Todd, I think you can move on if no questions.
Just making sure there are no questions. All right, so up next, this is following up from our meeting in April, and essentially, back to, as Judy mentioned earlier, one of our goals as a committee in our activities is to have more interfacing and coordination and collaboration with other committees, and particularly thinking of places, whether they be in like research problem statements, like Yochai was mentioning, like sessions, like conference efforts, different things like that, we can make sure that, accessibility is connected to and part of, the relevant efforts that are going on at other TRB committees, and that we stay abreast of what what those activities are. And so to help make this happen, and to help Judy and I in particular make sure that we're plugged in if people aren't reaching out to one of us directly, what I was hoping to do is have this a little bit of a structured liaison sort of designation for people to help be kind of the point person to that other to AME 50 from that other committee, to help make us aware of different activities and upcoming opportunities that are going on, and to help reach out to Judy and I in terms of that coordination, help if there's knowledge of when another committee meeting might be, that particularly committees that have a lot of overlap in friends that follow both committees, and also to help serve as check-ins during our meetings themselves, our committee meetings themselves. We'll have what I imagine would be towards the end of the meeting a kind of quick report out of activities that the other committee that you're involved in as a member or friend would be able to tell us a little bit about what that committee is working on, and that might spring some ideas or brainstorming about how AME 50 could connect with them and make accessibility a part of that. So I see a hand up. I do want to say a little bit in terms of who would be kind of the designated persons that's we would have as the liaison. Would be preference would go to like membership to that committee, but also friends of an active friend of that committee would also be helpful to have. And so that was part of what I had in mind for who could be what person, stressing the importance of being active with that other committee. But Renee, you had a comment?
Yes. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So I mentioned in the chat, I sit on AP020, which does emerging and innovative transit technology. So I'd be happy to be the liaison for that committee. And I'm also organizing a panel as part of a half-day workshop on use of artificial intelligence in transit. So I'd love to include someone with expertise in accessibility. And if that is a focus of anyone who's attending today, or something that we could coordinate with after, I would love to be able to add such a person as a panelist. Thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for making us aware. You said AP020, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead to, and I'll go ahead and add you to the list actually. So we have Renee. Oh, that's the wrong one. I follow AP020 as a friend as well, but let me make sure that we have you down as a potential liaison for that. So these are some folks, and these are just ideas if you want me to take your name off, or similarly like Renee being proactive and raising her hand. If you have a desire to be, if you're active or a member of another committee, to be the liaison reporting out. So I had, and just to respond to the comment of knowing what the names of these committees are, and associated with their code. ACH 40 is the Committee on Human Factors of Infrastructure and Design Operations. AED 40 is Geographic Information Science, which Chungo is on. Sarah, I saw you were here, and you were involved in a couple of these committees like ACH 40, as well as AP020 as well, which is innovation in innovative public transportation services and technologies for AP020. But these are some of the others, just to go on some of these different topic areas that folks have some level of membership or friend involvement. AKD 80 is roundabouts and intersection design and control strategies. AME 20 is women and gender and transportation, which I had Joanne and Mary on for that potential liaison role. AME 70 is the Committee on Transportation and Public Health. And then for some of these others, particularly in the AP section, Sally Swanson, who's been active with our committee for a while, is on AP045 on passenger intermodal facilities. AP050 is bus transit systems. AP055 we've had a lot of interface with Jill Haug, and that's the Rural Public Transportation Committee. AP090 is the Transit Data Committee, which I'm also a member of. And then a couple others of interest. Kate is a member of the Rail Rolling Stock and Motive Power Committee, AR020. And Judy, I kind of tentatively put you down as with AV010 with everything that we're doing with the Aviation Administration Policy Committee. So I have on the next slide some other potential committees of interest, but that I want to flash on the screen. And you can also in the chat indicate committees that you have involvement with and are interested in. But these are some others that I did put the names for, like the pedestrians, bicycle transportation, workforce development, public engagement. The ones in the AME section, such as equity and transportation, Native American transportation, developing countries, and community resources. Judy and I, since we're in that section, we do talk with the chairs of those committees during our section meetings, but of course we're not in attendance at the actual meetings for a lot of those committees themselves. So it'd still be good to have someone who has a more active role in following that committee to be a part of them.
Pat, I was thinking another role for the liaison of these committees is to share any pertinent information that you think our members might benefit from in our newsletter. Susan Clark does our newsletter quarterly, and that might be a nice forum to highlight any information that comes out of your knowledge that you gain by your liaison with these committees.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing we talked about, Judy, is we could have some component of this of liaisons available on our committee resources page on our website. And that's something that we can work with Susan and Subash in terms of how to best display that and have that as part of our resources available.
Good idea.
And Ling, thanks for the comment. I was trying to have space for the different committee names and codes and not just have slides and slides of everything. But yeah, we would do that in the full information for this back to until we all memorize the committee codes via flashcards.
That'll be a quiz for the next meeting that we have, right?
There'll be a TRB prize for that. So I just, and yeah, I think we have another half hour to go, but I just want to see if there are any questions on this. Please indicate. You can reach out to me or leave in the chat if you're interested in being a liaison, and I can follow up with the people I identified previous through directory search and such of who might be good people to serve in those roles as well, to directly formally ask you, you know, if you'd like to be that person or not. So any questions on that?
And we could build, you know, I was thinking on our website, which I don't know if many of you go to our website, it's trbaccessmobility.org. We can post all this information. And as we learn about the kinds of activities that you all are involved in, as a liaison, we could build on that description and post it to our website.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this is where we meet in terms of, we have our what's new page, and then we have committee resources on our great website, thanks to Susan and Subash, that we could have that information together. So and we've actually gotten from, I was on the last AP 055, the rural public transportation committee. During their last meeting, they gave a shout out to our website and the information on our website and everything. So that's a kudos to our communications co-chairs in terms of making it a great committee website and resource. They said they were going to try and emulate some of the features.
Nice.
Okay, well, I'll keep going, but I'm monitoring the chat also, and I'll follow up with folks about that. But Judy, do you want to talk about Kate?
Sure. We were approached by the Council on Advancing Transportation Equity, which is led by AME 10, that they're having a conference in 2024 in Baltimore, Maryland, and they were looking for partnerships and collaboration with members of our committee. So thank you to all of those who volunteered. They've got 3 committees: programs, marketing, fundraising, and the names that you see on the screen are those folks that are currently participating. They're also having an unconference with panels and focusing on related stakeholders and focusing on public health, economic development. I'm wondering if anyone on this call has been participating in any of the planning meetings. I had reached out to the conference planners for Kate to get an update and haven't heard back. So Melissa, Ling, Annabelle, Roger, Chris, Bell, have any of you been involved in, have you had meetings with the committees?
This is Chris Bell. I haven't heard from anyone on that about that conference, so
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you. All right, Good. I'll continue to reach out to them, and if I hear anything, I'll let you know. They were pretty adamant that they wanted our members to sign up for these varying committees, and I appreciate those of you who did. I will follow up as if I hear anything. So it's just another opportunity for us to collaborate with another TRB committee. It gets high visibility, this conference. So it's good. They've got a host of TRB committees that are involved. So we'll keep you posted.
Okay.
And TransEd conference planning is next. I really need your help. Please email me again if you're interested in being on a planning committee. We've been reaching out to various international organizations to partner with. TRB is interested in us kind of leveraging resources that another organization may have, so we don't go at it alone. Our plans are still tentatively 2025. We want it to take place internationally, someplace out of the United States, to really emphasize the international perspective. I know some of you have indicated your interest in being on TransEd. Send me a note again and we'll have a meeting soon. There's some other things that I'll talk about later in the agenda that have come up that have kind of derailed me from really focusing on TransEd, but I need your opinions and thinking about what partnerships we're looking for. So please let me know.
Looks like we have two volunteers in Johan and Mary in the chat.
Okay. Perfect.
And Ling.
Yep, and Ling and Annabelle, I'm assuming. Okay, and Mary with UTEP. Yeah, that's one of the organizations that I did reach out to and hadn't heard back. So yeah, I think our connections with some of these other international associations or membership organizations will be really important, because I've been reaching out and not had a lot of response. So thank you for any connections you all have.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Any other questions on TransEd, or we'll keep going if not?
Did I don't think Bill got on. Is anyone else from TRB on? I didn't see anyone.
I didn't see anyone either.
Okay. Oh, Kit Mitchell, you're a glutton for pain, right? You want to be involved again. You want to be the chair? Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll touch base with Bill and others at TRB to get some updates, and we'll share them in the notes.
Okay, we can do that. And yeah, just as an FYI for those, James Manning is the new person in Gary Jenkins'
left,
previous role. So Judy and I have just been introduced to him via email, but if you see in our future activities, James Manning, particularly with the conference planning stuff, I would imagine he's going to be very important with that, but we'll meet him at a different point, I suppose. Judy, did you want to talk about this, or?
Yeah, very quickly. We were approached by the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation's office to help organize a couple of events related to air travel and accessibility. For those of you in the States know that there's some pending legislation associated with the Air Carriers Access Act. There's some other regulatory guidance around wheelchair securement and bringing wheelchairs on board and lavatories. So there's been a lot of national discussion around airline accessibility. And so to support their work, the DOT contacted us last year at TRB. We had a workshop session on aviation on accessibility. And so as a follow-up to them, to that particular workshop, they asked us to help plan a TRB webinar that is scheduled for sometime in September, and then organize another workshop for the annual meeting in January. We're going to have people with lived experience that could speak about the implications of bringing wheelchairs on board or not, implications for their equipment and their wheelchairs and motorized devices when they can't, we're going to have representatives of the Department of Transportation and other advocacy and national NGOs whose work focuses on aviation and air transportation. We're doing this in cooperation with AVO 10, which is a standing committee on aviation administration and policy. So really exciting work that DOT came to us and said, we need your help with this. And it's a nice opportunity for our committee to be engaged in high-level discussions about this work. So happy to talk offline about any specifics, and certainly as we get more information, as dates are confirmed, we'll share that with you. So.
Yeah, and particularly for the webinar, once we know we know it's going to take place in their September schedule. But once we get the specific date and information on registration, we will be sure to blast that out to everyone to see if you can attend with that. And I think, yeah, to echo what Judy's saying, the Department of Transportation is, following up on things that, of course, AV 010 has been doing in this area. And then, like our speaker session that we had at the last TRB meeting, they're very interested in continuing, this conversation in, with momentum towards the next annual meeting in 2024 and beyond. So that's very exciting. And I think our continued collaboration with AV 010, is going to be great in terms of making sure this is a priority topic area. So if there are no questions on that, the other thing I wanted to just to keep everyone apprised of kind of what's been going on behind the scenes, really in the last couple of months, as we were doing our own problem statement and development and Yohai's work in the mini teams, as well as development of sessions for TRB. We, of course, simultaneously heard from other committees that were interested in getting our support for various things that they're doing. So these are some of the things that I think I got all of them in searching back at email history and everything of things that Judy and I reviewed and put our AME 50 stamp on in terms of supporting with this. So one, of course, AB 055, the Rural Public Transportation Committee has also a lot of development of research problem statements. One that they have submitted is on innovations for equitable rural transit economic benefit analysis, and that includes economic benefit in that problem statement, trying to essentially have a work in how benefit analyses can better capture the quality of life improvements for people living in rural areas. And so a focus area within that will be persons with disabilities in rural areas through transportation service that's available. So that was submitted through the TCRP program. There were three, and I don't know if, I believe the first bullet point on this workshop sessions section has been accepted from AB 010, another workshop, making space for all, reimagining universal design practices for airports. So again, having some synergy in accessibility in air travel. This is another workshop that we're trying to make sure that there won't be overlap between that session and this session, so that there will be some good overall programming for this topic of accessibility in air travel. So that has our committee support. There were also two others, one on mobility data interoperability principles, and another on microtransit mobility wallets and related innovations that concern accessibility within those areas of data in new mobility, and then microtransit innovation that we pledged our support to as well. Elsewhere on webinar sessions, I know BZ had put in this webinar session idea. I don't know if it's moving ahead or not, but making floating bus stops accessible to people with vision disabilities, and going off of a lot of her and others' work in that area. So I hope that one does get on the schedule, and if so, I think we'd see it sometime this fall, which we'd also put out in our newsletter and other information in terms of that being available. And then in addition to our own call for papers, this is another, this committee, AP 045, which is the Committee on Passenger Intermodal Facilities, reached out to us on their call for papers, and included within their topics of interest is accessibility of those intermodal facilities. So that has our committee as well as other committees support for that. And that's actually something I think next year when we do, if we do a call for papers in a similar manner, we've kind of been handling them ourselves so far, but if you, in recent years, but if you look at the call for papers that are available on my TRB, some of them, like this one, have multiple co-sponsoring committees as well. And that's something we can maybe take a look at next year in terms of, if there's, opportunities for support for our call there. So any questions on that in terms of, our co-sponsor support? Essentially, Judy and I just try to make sure that if we're going to, put our stamp on it, that we, accessibility is part of the discussion and something that's going to be addressed as part of the research, the potential research effort or the conversation, within each of these formats. Okay. Well, I think we're towards the end, so I want to make sure that we have, if you haven't already in the chat, folks can share other announcements that they had for this. I did include, these are links that, the same links that we had in the email that Susan had sent out last week, but I just wanted to call further attention to them. One is, well, this bullet point on Transportation Resilience 2023 International Conference, we had previously included their call for abstracts, but they're having their conference later this year in November in Washington, DC. And so you can, if you're interested in attending, you can go to their page to look at their agenda and register. There's also these bottom three links we included in our email. One, the National Travel Monitoring Expo and Conference in 2024, their call for abstracts, the Public Transit Disability Dashboard through Johns Hopkins, and then this upcoming survey effort for TCRP B50, which is about transit information for people with vision disabilities and ways to improve that. So just doing another plug for those efforts. But any other open discussion, report outs or announcements folks want to make here?
Hey, Todd, this is Judy. Just one thing, just to remind folks, our work plan that we submitted to TRB, one of our objectives is to collaborate with non-traditional kinds of partners. So if you have occasion to go to conferences or meetings and have an opportunity to share information about Transportation Research Board, AMA 50, any of your work, let us know. I think that our connections and building the knowledge of other audiences who typically are not TRB audiences is a really important outcome for us. So share those stories with us. Todd and I are going to put together a sort of a state of the AMA 50 report and share that with TRB as a way to document the kinds of collaborations that we've had and the relationships that we have with non-traditional kinds of transportation not providers, but organizations, I think would be really interesting to TRB.
Let's see, I see we have a hand up from Mary Leary.
Yes, hi, everybody. Just an announcement and a request for input. We recently, a couple of weeks ago, did a bus compartment, Bus of the Future convening, a virtual convening, and we're gathering information from a whole host of stakeholders on this. The bus compartment is meant to protect bus operators. We're also looking at ways to increase accessibility on buses and also make sure that in creating the bus compartment, we don't break accessibility issues as well. We had some really good feedback from members of the disability community at the event. So I'm going to put a link in the chat to a Federal Register notice. We have offered to anyone who would like to comment to give us their thoughts and suggestions about where we're going. And basically what will happen is we're going to be putting out a large notice of funding opportunity for a new advanced vehicle design around the bus of the future and bus compartment. So I'll go ahead and put something in the chat and would love to hear from folks. Just respond to the Federal Register notice and give us your comments. Thank you.
Nice. Mary, are those the comments, are they going to be aggregated and available to the public at some point?
Yeah, we will definitely aggregate and summarize the comments that we received both at the event itself and also from the Federal Register notice. So yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
There'll be a lot of detailed comments, and it's a pretty technical area, so we'll summarize at a relatively high level. But it certainly would love to hear from members of this group. Thanks. And I just put a note in the chat.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mary. Definitely take a look.
Todd and Judy, this is Chris Bell. I can't see where to raise my hand on the controls, but I did put out in the chat a concern I have about the lack of quantitative data relating to people with disabilities in general and subgroups, people with mobility, sensory, et cetera, impairments. This lack of data, I think, means that, as I said, if we as people with disabilities can't be counted, then we don't count. And so much of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the DOT evaluations for different safety-related programs require quantitative data. And so my question is, what do we do when that quantitative data doesn't exist? And what kinds of proxies for such data can we methodologically use? I think those are important issues. I don't know how to address them, but I want to at least raise them.
Yeah, thank you for that. Are you, and maybe this warrants a discussion with Yohai and Todd too. Is it, I guess, what specifically about the quantitative data are you asking? Are you asking the numbers of individuals who use various modes, the incidence of accessibility? There's so many topics embedded in what you just said. It'd be interesting to flesh that out and see if we could turn it into a statement.
Sure, certainly for pedestrians, vulnerable road users, safety evaluation of deaths and serious injury to identify which of the injured or killed parties have disabilities and whether that disability tied into or caused in some way the accident, lack of sidewalk. I mean, there's many things, as you say, but I think those are some of them. But I'm not sure how to proceed. So that's really kind of my question. And you guys can address me afterwards if you want.
Yeah, and Yohai, you have your hand up. Is it pertinent to what Chris just talked about?
Yeah, well, partly, I guess it sounds like, Chris, you're more interested in the traffic accidents and injuries, right?
Well, yes, I'm interested in safety. It's not just traffic accidents. It's things like the need for accessible pedestrian signals, the need for better street designs, speed control, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I guess the statement that I mentioned earlier on that was about examining how disability is quantified in travel surveys and transportation research partly addresses this, because in that statement, the group was trying to make that point that a lot of the funding and decisions that get made about infrastructure or service provisions, right, are based on data. And if the questions that are being asked are not counting people appropriately,
then those decisions will not be informed correctly. So that was a little bit part of what that statement was about. And so happy to follow up to send that specifically to you if you'd like. And maybe we could try to see on about building on that potentially to to kind of further address it or further look at it as an issue, or look at like a webinar or
And maybe work with the pedestrian committee, right? Yohai? Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Pedestrian committee, and other committees that kind of use data.
Right, and there are a lot of data committees too, as well.
Yeah.
Which I know nothing, of
Yep.
course.
Yeah.
But okay, Yohai, I'll send you an email. Thank you all for your time.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris.
Chris,
Mary,
I'll
you
also
had
add, and I'll follow up that there were a couple at our annual meeting in January. There were a couple projects going on that we had brief presentations from on transportation data, and looking for basically calls for like input. And I think they were looking for different data sources that people have, but I think there's an opportunity if we circle back, and I can't remember them off the top of my head, but we can circle back with them on where they are with those efforts, and like these particular concerns about making sure that accessibility is counted properly and proportionally within those efforts and data sets that they have. I think that could be another place that, as we're plugged into, and like Chris, you just mentioned other committees' efforts in these areas, that we ask these questions.
Yeah, good. Mary, did you have your hand up? Something in relation to this conversation?
No, I need to bring it down.
Put it down. Okay. And I was also thinking that NHTSA, the National Highway Safety Transportation Program, might have some data that we could look at. I think we could do some homework, and then Chris, definitely reach out to Yohai, and we could kind of flesh out the question more, and maybe do some sort of reach to all of you as members and the 599 others of you, and see if anyone out there has any suggestions. So thanks for the question. Anyone have their hand up? Any else? It's hard for me to see.
No, it doesn't look like it at the moment. Or if you can't find the button, you can unmute. Also, if you want to ask a question aloud, or announcement or anything like that. Okay, well, if you do, please go ahead and unmute, but I'll go ahead and just do these plugs as people are having to drop out, understandably. But we will have a fall virtual committee meeting probably in September to review the paper process and what we've seen, as well as do prep and the webinar efforts, and as well as do some final prep and conversation for the annual meeting, and follow up on these items like the ones we were just discussing. So we'll send out an announcement for when that date will be, but that's a virtual meeting in the fall that we will expect to have. And then, of course, for the TRB annual in January in DC, we'll do it as we have the past few years, an in-person and virtual in-person meeting with a virtual connection for that. So you can expect that, and we hope for those of you that can attend in person that we'll see there, of course. But then as Yohai said and provided information for, please do reach out to him on your interest in participation. Judy and I are going to follow up with folks on some of these different notes for the TransEd conference planning. We'll also follow up on Chris and others on the CATE conference interest to make sure that you're plugged in with that. And I will follow up with folks on liaison roles with that. But any other questions for folks, or Judy, anything I forgot?
No, I just, so the virtual aspect of the annual meeting in January, that's up to each committee to organize that. My understanding is that TRB is not providing any of the equipment like they didn't last year. So for those of you who did participate virtually last year, if you have any suggestions for us as to how to make it better or how to facilitate your engagement, please let us know. It was our first attempt at doing that. We used our own equipment, borrowed equipment. We had those owls that hopefully gave you a view of the room, but it's tough. It's tough to do it in person and virtual meeting, and we're using equipment that might not be the best equipment. So any feedback you have from your participation last year, please let us know.
And maybe we can talk about that's a good point, Judy. Maybe we can talk about the proposed format in our fall meeting of what we're going to do and have that as a set aside discussion. Good.
Including the room setup. I know we had some questions about that. We shared some concerns with TRB. So yeah. Good. Any other information? We're so appreciative of all of you. You spent the last hour and a half with us. A lot of content was shared, but we want to try to make this our committee as interactive and engaging as we can, and we're always want to be responsive to your suggestions. So thank you from me. I'll let Todd sign off on.
Yeah, and thank you very much. It's great to see so much participation and attendance today. And so, this is a big group effort to make these things happen. So we'll stay in touch with y'all and follow up, but have a good rest of your day. And thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.